Jared Loughner. He's the guy who, of course, did the shooting here of Congresswoman Giffords and 19 others. And there's been talk in the media about whether this is political or it's not political. First, let me start with the obvious. He's a psycho. He's not just a regular old psycho in terms of anybody who does a shooting is psychotic enough to begin with, but this guy is grade A psycho. I've watched all of his videos. I've read what he's said online. He's obsessed by a number of things. The currency, about gold and silver as opposed to dollar currency. He's concerned about grammar and literacy and the meaning of words. Now, I looked at it carefully to see if he had a point about whether grammar and the meaning of words like terrorism, which he discussed. I just wanted to just give it a look to see, my God, does this make any degree of sense? In the end, I came to the conclusion that, like Beautiful Mind, he's writing things on a chalkboard, and they're not at all connected because the guy has lost his mind, okay? There's no connection between the grammar and the currency and all these wild conspiracy theories that he's got. And also, he does this thing about conscious dreaming, about remembering what you dreamt about, and he's obsessed by it. But as one of his professors explained, there is no logical nexus between any of his thoughts. The guy is crazy, right? So there's no question about that. Now, most of the people in the media then end the conversation and say, well, hence, it must not be political, and no one else is responsible other than Loughner for his crazy mind. Well, that's not where it should be. The conversation should be ended. He could be a psycho, and it could still be political. Now, he didn't go and shoot a butcher, a baker, or a candlestick maker. He shot a politician, and he shot a politician's aide, and he shot a judge. He also shot innocent victims at that political event. When they went to go find what his notes were, they did. They found his notes as to what he was going to do. He called it an assassination. Now, someone who cares about grammar and the meaning of words probably was not mistaken in what he called it. And it is obviously an assassination. And if you believe in terrorism at all, what is more terrorism than shooting one of our politicians, one of our judges, our innocent civilian victims? Well, that is terrorism, and this was definitely, in his own words, a political assassination. Now, was it right wing or was it left wing? Where is he coming from? Well, then the right wing will say, all right, maybe if it was political because he shot a congressman on purpose and called it an assassination, but he is, in fact, and right now, there are Tea Party advocates, conservative blogs, conservative commentators, all calling him a liberal. Now, let me just remind you of the most simple fact. He shot a Democrat. He didn't shoot a Republican. He shot a Democrat. By the way, they never shoot Republicans, and thank God for that. But they always do shoot Democrats. But I'm told that it's a wild coincidence. Every crazy person just randomly happens to shoot Democrats or what he views to be liberals inside a church or liberal organizations like Tides Foundation. It is all the wild coincidence. And the reality is, of course, it is not a wild coincidence. This guy, for all of his crazy ramblings, and he had a big reading list, and Mein Kampf was on it, but Communist Manifesto was on it, and so people say, oh, let's call it even. No, but the main thing you get out of it, and by the way, one of their stupid arguments for why calling him a liberal is that he was a self-avowed atheist and smoked pot. So that's what makes a liberal. He had, if you read all of it, there is not one thing in there where he says, I am on this side, and you can call it a liberal position, a progressive position, a democratic position. Not one, if you actually care to do the research. And by the way, I will remind you, he shot a Democratic politician, not a Republican one. And took a long time to prepare this. He'd been preparing this, and he had confronted her all the way back in 2007. Now, I'm not sure he was planning to assassinate her all the way back then, but that's when this all began. And he'd been planning this assassination for a long time. He was not mistaken. It was not random. It was directed at a Democrat. And his main political driving force, if you can paint it as one, other than being anti-immigration, which is also very conservative. And there were some rumors out, and then Department of Homeland Security saying whether he's tied to a racist group or not. Let's leave that aside for now, because that's not proven enough, right? But anti-immigration, but the main was anti-government. He hated the government. And anybody associated with the government, big government, etc., were the bad guys. Where have I heard that before? Okay, but no, they tell us it's all random, okay? So it's, of course, not random. Now, as to So we have his thoughts on it, and they are incredibly clear. And as to how he might have gotten the idea to target Gabrielle Giffords in the first place. Now, look, there's a lot of different ways that you can go with this, and some of his friends say that it was because she was available. She was in that area. She was a congresswoman, and that is entirely possible. That could certainly be among the motivating factors. The other motivating factors could be that this guy was directed, whenever he turned on any media, to target Democrats, right? For example, Sarah Palin's now infamous map of Democrats who should be taken out. Now, she put these people, including, as you can see, Gabrielle Giffords, in the crosshairs. They were targeted. And there she is right on the list. By the way, 18 of them were not reelected, so they were taken out, as a matter of speaking. There were only 2 that were left, and one of them was Gabrielle Giffords. The other person should hire serious security. Now, at the time, she wrote on our Facebook account, "Common sense conservatives and lovers of America, don't retreat, instead reload. Please see my Facebook page." By the way, Jared Loughner reloaded. And that's how he was able to shoot more people. He followed Sarah Palin's advice to a T. He did not retreat. He reloaded. When confronted with this, Sarah Palin pretends to be the victim and says, "Oh my God, what are you talking about? I had nothing to do with it. No, no, no." In fact, her spokesperson, Rebecca Mansour, she's a staffer for Sarah PAC, says, "We never, ever intended it to be gun sites." Really? You got a funny way of showing it when you put in gun sites on the map. She claimed, no, those were surveyor symbols, and you see crosshairs like that all the time on maps. Well, if that's true, why does Sarah Palin write in reference to the map, reload, don't retreat? Why does she say as late as this November, just a little over a month ago, that those were bullseyes? Does that sound like she's referring to a surveyor's map? No, she's referring to weaponry. And when you asked about that, Mansour, the person that works for her, says, "It never occurred to us that anybody would consider it violent." Well, then you're profoundly stupid. I might use the R word, but Sarah Palin has banned it. Really? You put gun sights in, you say take them out, reload, it's bullseyes, and then, oh, golly gee willikers, I never could have seen it coming. That people would consider that violent. Of course they would. Look, we're not talking about appealing to regular people. Regular people aren't going to go shoot 20 people in a shopping area. But what they're doing with these psychos is they're using them as hate-seeking missiles. And it's not a coincidence that all of these psychos are going and killing Democrats or liberals, because they have been directed, subtly or not so subtly, throughout all this time to do just that. Now, it's not just Sarah Palin, and it's not just generally. It is specifically directed to Gabrielle Giffords. For example, her opponent, her Tea Party opponent that ran against her in this last election, a guy named Jesse Kelly, took out an ad of upcoming events, and he said, "Get on target for victory in November, help remove Gabrielle Giffords from office, shoot a fully automatic M16 with Jesse Kelly." Now, does that sound like it is not violent? We got target, we got shoot, we got M16s. How overt did he need to be? This is sickening, it is repulsive, and they tell us it is random. But it is not random. It's also happened in Arizona before. In 1997, a woman by the name of Mary Rose Wilcox was targeted. She was shot. And, of course, it was a conservative. And she told Huffington Post, "I knew at the time that the hate had been caused by a lot of the rhetoric that had gone on. At the trial, the man actually said, 'I shot her because the radio said I should take her out.'" Now, when Sheriff Newt talked about how Arizona has become the mecca for this kind of violence and nonsense, they criticize him, of course. But, in fact, it's been happening for a long time. In fact, at a town hall event of Gabrielle Giffords, earlier, someone had dropped a loaded gun on the ground. And that wasn't clear enough. They threw a brick through her window, and her campaign office had been targeted. She had been targeted over and over again, and this was not lost on her. She has a quote. She said, quote, the way that she has it depicted, meaning Sarah Palin depicting those targets, including Gabrielle Giffords on it, and this is Giffords' own quote, the way that she has it depicted has the crosshairs of a gun sight over our district. When people do that, they have got to realize there are consequences to that. And Gabrielle Giffords was 100% right. And now there are consequences. And these are the consequences. But they tell us, hey, let's call it even. Well, it's not even. It is. Now, let's go and let's find out. Well, is it all sometimes Democrats, sometimes Republicans? No. Now, whether it's the people that are inciting the violence or the actual result, the people who are committing the violence. When you go to the, in my opinion, it is violence in and violence out. Let's show you the violence in. Here are some of the quotes, and there were dozens of these, and we had to cull them down to these. Here are some of the quotes from some of the folks on the right-wing side, okay? Let me get you the list. There's so much information against them. Here it is. First, Representative Michelle Bachmann. Here's what she had to say. I want people in Minnesota armed and dangerous on this issue of the energy tax because we need to fight back. Thomas Jefferson told us having a revolution every now and then is a good thing, but golly gee willikers, how could they possibly know that that was going to lead to violence? Here's what Sharon Angle said. If this Congress keeps going the way it is, people are really looking toward these Second Amendment remedies, saying, my goodness, what can we do to turn this country around? I'll tell you, the first thing we need to do is to take Harry Reid out. Now, that is the famous Second Amendment remedies comment, but always talking about taking the guys out on the other side. Here's Rush Limbaugh. I tell people, don't kill all the liberals. Leave enough so we can have 2 on every campus, living fossils, so we will never forget what these people stood for. Well, is he not munificent? Is he not generous? Leave 2 liberals, just kill the rest. But gee, I wonder where these hate-seeking missiles got their ideas. Here's Ann Coulter. We need to execute people like John Walker, and that was the guy who was caught initially in the beginning of the Afghanistan war, was an American, in order to physically intimidate liberals by making them realize that they can be killed too. Well, and we realize it because the people who are doing your bidding are out there shooting congressmen, are shooting us, shooting liberals, shooting Democrats nonstop. Here's Newt Gingrich, approving of the way the Tea Party has, quote, become the militant wing of the Republican Party. So he loves that. But then later he will say, oh, how dare people say that this is political and that we incited it. We just told them to be a militant wing and take Second Amendment remedies into their hands and kill almost all of the liberals. But how dare people suggest that? Here's Ericson, a CNN commentator and a well-known conservative blogger. We have become or are becoming enslaved by the government. I dare him to try to come throw me in jail. I dare him to. I'll pull out my wife's shotgun and see how that little ACS twerp likes being scared at the door. They're not going on my property. Grab your guns. That's always the message. And Coulter, again, my only regret with Timothy McVeigh is he did not go to the New York Times building, meaning that everyone in the New York Times should have been bombed and killed. Representative Joe Barton, an elected congressman from Texas, put anything in my scope and I will shoot it. That was on a PowerPoint presentation specifically regarding the Obama administration. Gee, I wonder where they got the violent ideas in the first place. Here's Joyce Kaufman. She was briefly the chief of staff for Representative Allen West, an incoming Tea Party congressman from Florida. Quote, I am convinced that the most important thing the Founding Fathers did to ensure me my First Amendment's rights was they gave me a Second Amendment. And if ballots don't work, bullets will. Gee, I wonder where they got the idea. Now, can you find equal and opposite quote from liberals or Democrats? And the answer is, hell no you can't. There are no Democrats or liberals talking about killing all the Republicans, talking about how we should resort to bullets, Second Amendment remedies, etc. This false equivalency on this issue is repulsive. No, it is blind to the truth. The truth is that these leading conservatives in the country have been instigating this violence, inciting this violence over and over again. And the minute it happens and there's blood on the ground, they walk away going, oh, nobody could have seen it coming. Oh, no, not us. We had nothing to do with it. Well, let's look about that was the violence in. Let's look at the violence out. What were the results? Perhaps somehow it turned out that conservatives were shot at. Well, that didn't happen. It was always conservatives doing the shooting. And